of what made esports cool was the idea that the actual tournaments and players we have now could get bigger. Not the idea that some other, like, that's why I'd never be able to fuck with people in the industry who themselves only care about, like, Counter-Strike, for example. And then they're like, oh, it's brilliant to see Boogo winning the Fortnite. It's nothing, that's not even anything to do with you. What are you talking about? Why is that brilliant for you? That would be like being someone who your whole life was an advocate for, like, just pick some random country, like that country getting out of economic bad conditions. And you were like, oh, brilliant, that instead everyone gave all the money to this totally different country. How would that help you and your cause? You lost, mate. Do you not realize that? You didn't win because they won. You lost.
So, I'll do the ad read now. All right, I'll give I'll shout out the sponsors. .com. .com/RLS if you want to go and support them. You can place some bets on esports events. We are going to talk about some events in just a moment. You can head over there and, like I say, it's B18 plus. Bet responsibly. They're a great sponsor to have, and we really like having them. So look after them. Right. Now, we can talk about an event. I'm going to need you to cast your mind back here, Duncan, but since, as you can remember, as far back as fucking ES Reality, I think you'll be all right. At the start of the month, there was something called the Ice Challenge. I believe you put out an edgy tweet about it. Made some immigration joke or something, because of course you did. But anyway, it was a pretty good event in terms of the teams that were there. There were some decent teams. You had Mouse Sports, you had Navi, you had OG, you had Ents, Mad Lions. The new Godsent lineup. So it was a good event in terms of the teams that were there. There was obviously Sadakist and Henry there, and some other people. And it sounds really dismissive. I'm not. I just can't remember. But it was a fucking nightmare in terms of trying to watch those games. I mean, like because it was in London, the time zone for me was fucking, like I'm having to wake up like crazy o'clock. And no match started within like an hour of its proposed time.
They had a lot of issues as far as I can tell. I think it's because, like, I don't want to speak out my ass here, but I believe it was maybe at some sort of like an expo or something. It was one of those, like, almost like a throwback event in that sense. So I think that's why it had issues. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, there was a lot of activity in the background wherever Sato and Henry were sat when they were doing the commentary. There was like a lot of activity behind them, so I think you might be right.
Because it's pretty notorious in that setting. You didn't set everything up necessarily, all the electricity or the internet. So it's very easy that you can have
someone kicks a wire out.
Came from an esports anyway, so
yeah.
Expected.
But anyway, I mean, so it had a lot of problems. So in terms of it being like a good event, it wasn't. But it did throw up some interesting games and some interesting results. Let's start by talking about Ents, because there was some delicious revenge, of course, served up on the very first day. OG were playing Ents, and as those who were following the scene know, Alexi B famously kicked from Ents. That was the change they absolutely needed to make while they were like the second or third best team in the world. Since then, been an absolute free fall. Don't have any notable results to speak of since they brought in Sunny, formerly of Mouse Sports. And it was a double whammy, because not only did OG beat Ents in the series pretty comprehensively. The first train was an overtime win, but Overpass was horrifically one-sided towards OG. But also Sunny, who was the replacement for Alexi B, was absolutely dog shit in this series, and got like just over 20 frags on 2 maps. So they then went and played like the new Godsent lineup. I'm sure a lot of people were thinking, Ents can beat Godsent. No worries here. If you don't know who's on the Godsent lineup, that's the one that has Crystal still playing. So it's Crystal, Maiden, Zane, Sticko, and Makalele. Now, love some of those guys on that team as people, but I think it'd be...
They are rejects from other teams in reality.
Right, there we go. There's the word. There's the word in everyone's mind. No, yeah, they are like the fucking Raggy Dolls cartoon from the fucking 80s. But anyway, Godsent absolutely battered Ents. It was like 16-7 on Nuke, 16-4 on Inferno. It was just horrific. And Ents crash out of the tournament in joint last place. So, first of all, you can talk about those results if you want. But second, and perhaps more importantly, Ents are a fucking omni-shambles at the moment and haven't really shown any signs of improvement. They put some interview out saying, before DreamHack Anaheim, we're going to get our shit together. That starts tomorrow, I think. We're going to get our shit together and things are going to be different. I feel like they've been saying that for every tournament anyway, and nothing ever changes. I just can't believe what's happened to Ents. The Alexi B move will go down as one of the worst of all time, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the stupidest thing about it was, even if somehow he hadn't have panned out and he'd been shitting OG and, you know, maybe his aspect had failed, just with the way people's brains process moves, people would have said it was the worst move ever anyway, the same way as people spent the last 2 years laughing at Kirby for leaving Astralis. Even though I always said, you know, the part that never made sense about that to me is like, A, he almost certainly wouldn't have had that success himself, and B, there would have been no Astralis to have the success. So, like, what do people actually want him to go back in time and redo there? Like, that doesn't, like, that's just, basically, if you're a Kirby, it's just unfortunate. That's it. Like, you didn't actually make a bad decision or a good decision. Like, it's irrelevant. Like, we have no idea what would happen if you'd been in that team. Maybe you'd have completely shit the bed, been really terrible, and that'd be the end of your career completely. Could even happen. Yeah. So, I would say Ents already was in a really bad spot. They've obviously been absolutely fucking dire the last 6 months. Ever since the major, basically, they have been irrelevant completely. But then add in on that as well. The biggest problem is that Alexi B has been so legit elsewhere. And then I even was able to come, 2 days ago now, and say that from here in the comms, they are absolutely full of shit. He really is a legit, really good in-game leader who knows what he's doing, can call exactly the kinds of halves, by the way, that he was having at Blast Premier, that were like fucking old school Ents, where they were like coming back against big teams, all on the T side, all with great calls, all with like mad tenacity when it's late in a game and you should roll over if you're the underdogs or the more inexperienced players. So like Ents as an actual team right now, we're at the point where you almost have to remember who they were before they had that run at the beginning of last year, where they were like, I think before Katowice last year, they were ranked 13th in the world. They're going back there, boys, and that's where they're going to stay. There is no reason whatsoever.
I honestly cannot believe they're as high as 11th right now, frankly.
I would imagine some of that's layover from the fact that, like, unfortunately, one of the big flaws I've noticed with a lot of the ranking systems in the world is that just getting invited to events, you get placings even for, like, you get points for last place and shit. So it's really hard to, put it this way, to knock someone out of the top 20 or 30 now is fucking hard with the current ranking system. It's one of the reasons why for Flashpoint we will probably try and get someone independent to make a ranking so that we can't have that be a factor. Yeah. Because like we actually want the teams that really aren't top 20 to have to pay the fine. So what I would say is if you look going forwards, I can't think of a single reason why this Ents team will be a top 10 team again with this lineup. I don't think it'll ever happen.
I mean, I honestly think they're going to struggle to stay like top 15 even, because right now, you look at the teams that are kind of on the come up. Like, think about what Complexity just did at their last LAN.
Oh, there's some really banging teams in that 10 to 20.
They're 23rd.
Through. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, and they lost to that Godsent team at LAN, and it wasn't even close. Godsent are 19th. OG is 17th. They're on the come up. You've got Mad Lions, 12th. Like, these are 4 teams that are going to leapfrog above them, and I would back to beat them in any best of 3 series, like pretty much 8 times out of 10. So I think Ents have real problems. I don't know what they've done differently or what they think they're going to do. The balance is just off. And I said this, and this is no disrespect to Arlu. Arlu had a really good tournament, actually, at this ICE challenge. He played really well, but playing well and having good tactics and good strats and having a system and being a leader, it's just not the same. And I always thought Arlu was kind of like, like a quiet guy. Like, I mean, the way he handles himself on his Twitter is not an exaggeration who he is as a person to be funny. It's just who he is. He's a very stoic dude. It's one of the things to like about him, He's very forthright. He's very direct. He's very blunt, not verbose at all. Like, he just tells it like it is and tells it very shortly. So that's great. But I don't know how that translates to being sort of a great leader of men or a great in-game leader and having incredible tactics. And I watch Ents play, and it's just an uncoordinated shit show now. And at first people were saying, oh, well, they're dropping down because of the org meta has been changed. Like, the Krieg is busted as fuck. If you win CT rounds and can get Kriegs in your hand as a CT, you can just use all the old Alexi B strats.
Be better than the org.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not even arguably, it just is. Like, so, it's like, but they're not even winning the rounds. They can't string rounds together anymore. Their tactics are terrible. Like, and I think somebody said as well, like, I don't know if this was a genuine tweet, but somebody said We're still using like 70% of Alexi
It was actually Alexi B
strats.
himself. He said,
Yeah, they're still using 70% of my strats.
when he was
But
at Blast, I basically put it to him when he was on the desk
Mm.
after he won the first series against EG. Like, I'd heard from people inside Ents that like you weren't doing that much tactically, and that it was overblown, that you were the best IGL, and that Alu did like some of the key rounds. And he said not only is that completely false, but that he'd even heard from people within the team that they still use to this day when they come out of the spawn. 70% of the initial tactics are just shit he made with them months ago.
Yeah.
That is outrageous. It sounds true.
No, but I mean, so think about that then. So it's not even Alexi B has that intangible quality, right? Because it's not even just the strats that they're using. Because if you are using like 70% of the strats and they look this bad, well, now we've got an execution and a timing problem. If the playbook's good, what's going wrong? And obviously that means you misfire and people aren't doing what they need to do. I mean, every time I watch Ents now, it's like, I know, man, I enjoyed watching them so much back when they were like blowing up and
they have none of the character they used to have as a team.
Nah, yeah, it's just not even there. And they've got one of the best young players in world fucking Counter-Strike. Like, spare a thought for Sergey, who's like fucking still only 17. And like, what must be going through his head as a young dude where everyone was like talking about him as one of the best players in the world, rookie of the year, all these accolades. He's got the numbers to back it up. And now he's playing in a dysfunctional team. Like you got to. He's the one who has to parachute the fuck out. Like, if I'm him, I'm talking to an agent. If I'm him, I'm looking at my options. Maybe getting on one of these international lineups. Like, hell, maybe you could follow Alexi B over to OG and replace Issa. No disrespect to Issa, but it's a fucking hell of an upgrade to have, isn't it? He needs to look at his options now, because he's not even playing as well as he used to. There's clearly a confidence issue there, and I don't know, man. It's just sad. Like, Ents was a great breakout story when they were on the come up. They did incredible things, but now they're just an embarrassment, frankly.
I'd even go as well and add this detail in. Like, I don't know how much I can say about this because this hasn't been said publicly, but it was basically intimated to me that another thing Alexi B did within Ents was like, I won't straight up say micromanage, because people will go too far with that and think that the players
they'll blow that out.
But I'll just say that, like, as far as I know, he also was involved with managing like specific players in the team who I won't reference, in terms of how they played and what they maybe did, like when they rotated in times on the map. And again, I would just say that's one of the most damning things against the notion that Alexi B wasn't the good IGL, is that if everyone else in the team just played the same, but they just didn't win the same way IGL-wise, right now we can just blame Alu. As you're alluding to here, mate, even the players in the team are kind of whack now. Like, they don't get many big performances out of almost anyone in that team. Even Sergey has actually dropped off quite a lot statistically from where he was 6 months ago, a year ago, where he was he was right on the brink of being like a superstar, basically.
Yeah. The other team I think we should talk about here, and obviously a team that is going to be over at Flashpoint, we think. I think it was announced, right? Mad Lions. And they've been sort of a revelation the last few months, because I think back when they were tricked, I don't think anybody was looking at the roster and thinking this is going to do anything, and lol, God Hunden, etc. But this is kind of, this was where I'm like, okay, I 100% believe they're a legit team now, and are going to keep climbing and will be in the top 10, I think, very soon. Because, forget about Hunden for a second. We all know he's mechanically a very poor player. But the team he's been able to assemble here, in particular Bubsky and Acor, is really, really good. And here at the Ice Challenge, sure, they lost to Mouse Sports on the opening day. I think most people would expect that, but it was close. There was an overtime game in there.
Number one team in the world, according to ESL's ranking.
Yeah, exactly right. Then they were able to beat Heroic, and then they beat OG, and it was a pretty, it was 16-12s on both maps, so, that's kind of close. That's like, 1 or 2 rounds kind of swinging your way. But then they got a rematch with Mouse Sports in the semis, and they took the first map. They took Vertigo off Mouse Sports. I would say Vertigo right now, a good map for Mouse Sports. Definitely one they like to play. So they were able to do that. It was Mad Lion's pick. So they're not afraid of that stuff. Dust 2, Mouse Sports all day. But then Nuke was super close. There was a couple of rounds where things just went really awry. But I mean, this was like a legit showing. You've had some close maps. Took a map off. Mouse Sports, #2 team in the world currently on form. You've beat some other good opponents in there. This was like an impressive run. I mean, there's a world where conceivably, if things had gone a little bit different, maybe they do steal a series off Mouse Sports and go to the final against Na'Vi. So I'm super impressed. I mean, I still think the future home for the Danish talent that's like really leaping out is probably to go over to North. We're going to talk about North in just a bit, a little bit later on. But I think for now, Mad Lions is going to be like a legit team. Like, they've really found some good players here. I mean, there's that Shush as well. Like, I've got to give him props. He had a couple of great series here as well. So I mean, they're just a legit Danish team, proven once again. Denmark has the embarrassment of riches when it comes to talent in depth.
Yeah, the cool thing to me is the fact that basically Hunden somehow held on and kept this lineup till they became Mad Lions, because that now makes it so that in theory they might not just get all their pockets picked by all the bigger orgs, at least in the past, crucially bigger orgs. Whereas now, for people who don't know, like the people behind Splice and Mad Lions, Overactive Media, like they have pretty deep pockets themselves and can get plenty of fucking VC. So in theory, what you're getting to see now is what you never did get to see back in the day in Counter-Strike, which is you always got the top talents picked away constantly. In fact, the real joke was, if you remember, there was that team that was the one that had Epsilon, which was like Disco Doppler and Draken and Rez. And the joke was you only found out who fucking Rez was because the others two got taken away. And then eventually he was back. Like the joke is he would have been a background player otherwise. So you just saw those teams picked apart one by one, and we never really got to know what would have happened if you could have taken that team itself into an SK Gaming and given them the platform to go to the big events. So I would say, first of all, it's interesting that he's got this little window where he can actually show what he's doing with these players, and they don't just immediately go to MSL or Snappy, and then those players get the credit for them blossoming in the superstars. But I'd also add in as well, whereas usually when an underdog team comes up and has these big results, people think, the analysts are just hating on him, saying that, OG, Furia, they're just hating by saying they're going to drop off. What that normally means is the eye test doesn't work. The eye test for this team, they pass it like a motherfucker. They look really legit as a squad. Like, tactically, they look in place. Like you're saying, even the ones that were the least well-known, like the Shush guy, he has maps where he's looking banging as an entry player. Like, he seems to know exactly what the fuck he's doing. So the idea that they didn't just find, like, one talent, they found seemingly a whole plethora of talent. Some of them, in the case of the Bobskis and the Acors of the world, that we already had seen a little bit. It's just that they hadn't somehow flourished. So it's another example of where you can't put it all on the IGL, but I will say, like, how many times is Hunden going to get lucky if you don't believe he's the one crafting these players and figuring out their role and how to make them? Like, the guy's just amazing at what he does. Like, he has his own very specific lane, but he is the master of it in that sense. Like, I don't know anyone in World Counter-Strike who's been as this consistent at finding talent like this.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely right up there, right? I mean, what you have to remember as well as though with with Hunden, back in Counter-Strike Source, he was a guy like he played for like DS Rack. I think he played over at I think he was in one of the really good Danish Reason gaming lineups as well at some point. I could be wrong about that. That's a fucking long time ago. That's like 2010. But he was obviously a different type of player right there. But he was another guy that always seemed to have a handle on who was good in the Danish scene, like who was coming up. Like whenever I used to hang out with him and talk with him and have a beer with him at like the Danish lands, which I used to go to all of the lands, all the small community lands, all the big ones, like the Copenhagen games when that started, all the DS racks, everything. He would go, that kid's going to be wicked in 2 years. And you're like, okay, like 2 years, he's going to be good. And then boom, it would happen, I mean, like he would just know instinctively which players sort of had all the attributes. He also was very good at like sort of detecting when someone was being a little bit overhyped. Like,
all right,
yeah, like seriously, like so. I remember, there was a couple of Danish players that were on like the precipice of like, getting a lot of props in the scene and maybe getting called up to play on like one of the fetish lineups and stuff like that. And Hunden was like, no, that guy's gonna like drop off. That guy's going to drop off. And you'd be like, what are you talking about? He's fucking dropping 30s every game. Like, why would he just drop off? And happened again, there was a few players like that. he was a big fan of, like, for example, if people remember Once, I don't think people probably do, but there was this like kind of prodigy-esque player that came from kind of nowhere. Everyone thought he was a cheater and an onliner, as we do in Counter-Strike. Player called Once. And basically, Hunden and Fetish were his two biggest advocates in the Danish scene. And obviously that carries a lot of clout. But everyone was calling him an onliner, a fucking cheat. His movement was, like, sick. And, like, every time I think...
Comparable to a Ziwu type scenario, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
but
it was actually a little bit tougher than that for him coming through, because some of the people who called him out were old school players. Like, right. I want to say, I think like the Dutch Fnatic guys, who were like legends. They were the first dynastic Counter-Strike source team, going back to when they were called Northern Lights. I think they even said this Once kid's bullshit. And Hunden and Fetish were like, big advocates for him in the scene coming up. And Fetish eventually brought him in to the Reason Gaming side, which went on to be the #1 team in the world. So, if I remember rightly, they might have been #2, but they were definitely there or thereabouts and won a lot of tournaments. So, I mean, Hunden's he was doing that in Source. So it's not it doesn't surprise me that he's able to like root out people, because he's never had an ego either. It's kind of like who he plays with. Like, he doesn't give a fuck if you've got star power or any. He doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about your rep. It's just, what do you do on the server, and he'll play with anybody. And obviously later in his career he's had to play with anybody because his skills have dropped off. But
even that part though, mate, that's another thing, Peter. Like, one of my triggers is when a stupid idiot who sits there and has never accomplished anything in their own life looks at someone incredibly accomplished and dedicated and goes, "Well, you are paid to do it, so after all." It's like, people would think like, "Well, yeah, Richard, you have to play with all these scrubs." No, that's the thing. This guy could have quit 10 years ago. It wouldn't have been a big, the fact that he keeps grinding is fucking mad inspirational. Whether he's good enough to make or not's irrelevant, but like the fact that he puts in the hours. Because there's the other thing. It's not like he's just finding these players and then fucking around a bit in the server and they go, like, it looks like he puts in the kind of work I'd expect from someone in the top 5 team in the world to get these players up to speed, to have the playbook, to study the opponents. Like, anyone who's a master of their craft, like, you just got to tip your hat. Like, mad respect.
Sure, yeah, but I think it's quite telling as well, right? In a scene that is a bit not as bad as the French scene, but is notorious for like gossip and rivalries and bickering and like people airing their dirty laundry. I can't think of anyone who's ever had anything bad to say about Hunden as like an in-game leader or a person. It always just comes down to his skills on the server being kind of like the meme, the joke. Even I've poked fun at it, but everyone in the Danish scene really likes him. And I think it's like another reason why he gets access to, a lot of potential players that are out there. Like, everybody in the Danish scene knows everybody else, and Hunden, incredibly, despite the memes, he still has a lot of clout. So yeah, he's a really cool dude. I'd love to. Have you ever done an interview with him?
I did like a brief one. It was like a talk to Thorin one. Where that was mainly where all I kind of did was just put to him all the different players over the years that are like big names now that he's played with. Because I thought like he'll have an interesting insight on this guy when he first met him. So it was almost like that. Like, I just used him in that regard because I knew he had like I basically just looked it up one day and saw how many players had actually been in his teams. It was mental, mate. Like, if you did like the top 50 Danish CS:GO names, he probably had 40 of them in his teams. Like, there's very few skipped him basically.
Yeah. Well, no, you should. He's tantamount now for a Reflections. I think he would. I think that would be really good. And I could like feed you some of the interesting little anecdotes from the Source days, and you can sort of put them to him. But I think a Reflections with Hunden would be sick. Like, just putting that out there. Not trying to tell you how to do your job.
It's all right.
Yeah, you're thinking, no, but my boy Existence has just announced his retirement. So.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to do an interview in English, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, it's mental because he speaks good English. It's so
ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah.
I've never seen anybody speak English as fluently as he does and yet mind fucked himself that his English is bad. I've never. He is unique.
Oh no, mate! This guy is so ridiculous. He would actually say in perfect English, like, "I can't really speak English," and then keep turning to Semler to translate, as I kept saying. But I've already had this conversation with you in English when Semler wasn't here, and he'd go like, "Fuck off!" Like, give me a break.
Yeah, we don't need to translate. Yeah, you
exactly.
Talk perfect English. Yeah, no, mental. But anyway, so we'll wrap up the Ice Challenge talk. We're just talking about Mouse Sports. Actually, no, we'll do Mouse Sports and Navi because we didn't talk about Navi the other day. Mouse Sports, we'll do Navi first. Navi, we're kind of powering through. This was the first outing for the new lineup with Perfecto, which was a surprise pickup for a lot of people. I'll tell you, this Navi team here, it looked to have a lot more balance and a lot more shape, and considering they didn't have a lot of time, and clearly Perfecto wasn't the first choice or the player that they'd anticipated to have, and I'm sure they would have liked a bigger name. What was interesting here was immediately you could see the gap that Guardian was sort of creating on the scoreboard and the lack of impact he was having, and Simple moving back to Orpin, Perfecto coming in and rifling. It just gave Navi a kind of balance and a fluidity that they were lacking, but more importantly, it made up the firepower differential. And I think that's what we said before Guardian got kicked, right? We said all Navi need is a fucking mediocre rifler, because Guardian's dropping 10s and 15s. A mediocre rifle is going to give you a 20, 25, in across 2 maps minimum. So it worked. They were really good. They had like some good series here. I was very impressed with Perfecto because my expectations were super low. I thought he was going to maybe be a bit of a wash, a bit of a bust, but he had some series where he was very, very good indeed. And of course, Simple, back to God mode. Electronic is now legit a consistent player that is often challenging Simple for the top of the scoreboard now. Boomich seemed to be a lot happier. There was just this weird like malaise over Navi when Guardian was there, because I think everyone likes Guardian and looks up to Guardian, and it's just awful to see a player that you love and revere kind of fail consistently, and you're like, come on, we'll get him next time, and then next time he's even worse, and you go, it's definitely next time, you haven't hit bottom yet, don't worry, it's fine, like, we're going to bounce back, boom, and then he gets worse again. I think it did cast a pretty long shadow over this Navi team. Now, they weren't able to do a number on Mouse Sports in the final, which was a best of 5. But overall, for a first outing, I think Navi fans have got a lot to be cheery about.
Yeah, I actually think overall, as a team, as you say, I don't have to give many props to Perfecto. Like, he has certain moments and situations he can be good in. He doesn't look like a top player, and I can totally see why he wasn't on anyone's short list. It's just that the CIS region's a nightmare at the moment to sign any players from. Hence why there was even that bizarre news where Navi's trying to put together some sort of fucking summit to like be like, come on lads, let us have some of the players. Like,
I know, like, we've got the money.
So I would just say, like basically, I think we nailed this one. Like you said, all he had to do was, it wasn't even that Guardian was bad, is that he was bad and he was taking the AWP all the time. Because I actually had a discussion about this with Blade, because he said it in an interview with HLTV.org, that he actually thinks that Simple, as good as he is with an AWP, could be basically the most unstoppable player ever if he was a hybrid player. And the concept would be he'd only AWP certain times, the rest of the time he'd have a rifle. Because listen, like, we all understand, with 99% of players that have ever played, if they were equally as good with a rifle and an AWP, rifle usually is more useful. You can do better things in a clutch with it. You can obviously rotate positions and not get caught out as much. Like, you're not as stationary. The problem is, Simple's style of AWPing is so like absurdly unique to him that he almost uses it. Like, he's the first person I ever saw who actually used the AWP in the way that those stupid Valve devs described it when they nerfed it, where they said, we don't want it to become like a mobile shotgun, as though anyone in fucking Counter-Strike was using it like that. But Simple does. Like, he really can just sort of like sneak up on you, and he's that quick to fire and has that insane aim. He can just hit any flick shot from any angle and any distance. So as a result, the problem is, in the short term, like, I sort of know what Blade means by that. It's just that I feel like the problem is, you'd have to have a good AWPer and Na'Vi anyway to give someone else the weapon, and you'd have to recondition the whole team as to how to play around this different version of Simple. Whereas at the moment, when you've got Electronic in prime form, you've got this really good general level of skill across the team. Like, when we get to the last Premier, Boomich was having series where he was going fucking ham. So if we've got
he's growing into the role, definitely.
If it ain't just Simple Electronic anymore, and you can really make Simple go back to Simple of 2018 form, which shouldn't be possible for anyone, by the way. The idea you can just flip back into God mode, but he's done it. Why not just win now? Why wait and try and do? Why try and play ideal Counter-Strike when actually what you have right now, as we saw from these two tournaments, it might be enough now to win. You might be in position now to be top 2 or 3 again.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I don't know how much you saw of the Perfecto guy, but like again, just generally impressed. He didn't seem overawed with kind of playing alongside these, legends in the CIS region in the form of kind of simple electronic, obviously Flamey as well. And just playing on the big stage. He was doing a job and doing it very competently. Had some like nice clutch rounds. So for me, like overall, a very impressive pickup. When you would probably assume they got him on a budget, given how things work in the CIS region. So yeah, I mean, did you have any thoughts about him specifically? Did you pay any attention to him? Yeah, I don't even know if you were able to see these games.
I saw some of these matches, mainly the semi-final and the final, and then I obviously saw when he was at the Blast Premier. I would just say for him, like, the big problem with recruiting a player from a team like the one he was on, which realistically, like, I don't even know if you can say that team is tier 3. They're only tier 3 by the logic that they can go through the CIS minor and maybe go to a major. Aside from that team was not relevant at all on any level in World Counter-Strike, as far as I can tell, beyond allegations of potential match fixing. That's all I've heard about that team. So when you get a player from that level, it's not even about skills. Like, his skills looked all right. It's that they're just not going to have any comprehension of like the paradigm of the global meta of Counter-Strike at the top level. It's the same thing I noticed when all the Tai Lu guys came over. Every time they'd pick up a new player, that player would take like 6 months of going to the Katowices of the world in the majors before they even understood why are the other players positioning themselves that way? Why did they play a retake this way? Why don't they just take an aim duel against me that every guy in matchmaking takes against me? And until you get like how different the game can be experientially like that, it's fucking rough to get thrown in at the deep end like he was here. So I would agree with you. Generally, I was actually reasonably impressed that he wasn't worse. Like, I thought he'd have maps where he was absolutely terrible. But I could definitely see like that he's got a long way to go in terms of like he has to level up his like knowledge of how to play the game. Because skill set wise, it's like any sport. There's a lot of people could do the basic mechanics of the sport, but knowing how to play around your teammates and at the top level is like probably like half the fucking game.
Yeah, it is for sure. And then obviously Mouse Sports. This is why they're in a very strong second place. You know, if you look at the point difference, it's like, I don't know, 30 points, 25 points, something like that difference between them and Astralis. If I remember rightly, I can't remember when it was, but there was a period where Mouse Sports were on the climb again. And I think they got to number 2 in the world, and then didn't they skip an event and plummeted down the rankings again?
They got to number 2 when they had the old Chris J, Sonny lineup. It was actually after they beat Na'Vi, funnily enough, to win that like Star Series season.
Yeah, it was when they had that rivalry with FaZe as well. They were like, the FaZe killers. Yeah,
the one where famously Zeus got his 5th and 6th kill with the CZ in a grand final on home soil, where everyone allegedly used to cheat anyway. And then Henry G said the infamous line, "Zeus finally does something."
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Henry G backed out of it and was like, "I apologise to Zeus and his family and the people of Ukraine." Even though it was one of the most righteous calls of all time.
It was great, but immediately because everyone who is in an online community or a fandom of sorts is just insane.
The idea you had to walk that back, for God's
sake.
No,
but yeah, but
death 4 kills.
Yeah. Come to Russia, you know, it was fucking mental. But yeah, I loved it. Like, anyway, they won this event and won it pretty handsomely. They beat Na'Vi 3-1 in the final. Great dust too from that series. If anyone wants to, watch a good game of Counter-Strike just as a demo or a VOD, go check that out. That was really, really good. The Inferno, super comfortable for Mouse Sports. They gave up Train. You'd probably expect that with Na'Vi, even though it was Mouse Sports' pick. I kind of felt that was a coin flip. But then a really, really solid nuke from Mouse Sports. So they show now exactly why they're doing so well. They've got this incredible repertoire of maps. They're not afraid to throw in curveball picks. Like, Mouse Sports probably, obviously with the exception of Astralis, they're the one team, I think, like, if maps were picked at random in a series, I would
have the best chance to win, for sure.
Yeah, I'd back them to win every series. Because I think they're the one that has the map pool where they're always competitive on every game. And they really showed it here. I thought, I just thought, like, it just shows what an incredible transformation. I won't wax lyrical about Karrigan. We've done that enough. But, you know, Rops was so good here. I mean, to put it in context, right? Simple, 83 kills, Electronic 90 kills, and Rops had 83 kills. So that's the kind of company he was keeping in this series. And Frozen just behind with 82. He's like, come on, leaps and bounds. I don't know who scouted this kid back when he was doing FPL, when he was like 16 or whatever. I don't know who earmarked him to be a good talent, but man, the improvement he's made is just fucking phenomenal. So it was just a great, they're just a great team to watch. Always competitive, great individual performances right now. I guess the question is, I mean, do you think there is any chance of Mouse Sports ever being number one?
I don't think it's impossible, not least because when they did play Astralis, they even beat them. So I think that angle's even fun. The idea that maybe Carrigan, I mean, I did a video on it, as this insane record against his old team. So if it is specifically Astralis as number one, that's an interesting one. I feel like he's one of the few IGLs that doesn't have like the same fear of them. I mean, you shouldn't really, in theory, anyway, because if you're an in-game leader, you're just trying to problem solve and stuff. But let's be real. The aura of the fact that Astralis does get to a lot of people, especially the younger people who haven't been around the scene as long. They haven't seen all the great teams come and go. So I think they've got chances. The biggest problem I see is, like, they still have some young players, so you could get lucky and maybe one of them improves a little bit. But it does feel almost like they get almost everything out of all their players. So... Yeah. And I think it would probably take Astralis being worse, which is inconceivable after the Brass Premiership, to be fair. But I don't, like, I would have to say the problem is, with the way the scene is right now, like, Navi's in theory getting better. There's some other teams out there that are maybe going to make roster moves. I feel like it might be something like what you alluded to before with that old Mouse Sports team, like punched above their weight, got to number 2. It's like, what a great accomplishment. You win in tournaments. But are you ever really going to be the best? Probably not. Feels tough to call that. I agree, they're amazing to watch, though. Definitely one of the most exciting teams to watch.
They've got a really good bracket at Katowice. This is why I think... So when I was putting my fantasy team together, I've gone with 2 Mouse Sports players. I think I took Rops and Chris J. And they start against Vici, who were like weren't they the stand-ins for Ty Lue because of fucking coronavirus or something?
Sure.
So they've got Vici. You're gonna back them to beat Vici. I think they played him not that long ago in was it IEM Shanghai? But anyway, and then on the other side of the bracket, it's G2 and 100 Thieves. Well, I'm gonna back Mouse Sports to beat either of them, and that's gonna put them in the final. Now in the final, right? You've got Mad Lions taking on Evil Geniuses. I hope fucking Stan's been doing his homework because they could get a surprise tune in that has massive upset potential. Liquid are taking on that ridiculous Virtus Pro side, so you're going to back Liquid to go through. But then it could set up that tantalizing Liquid EG sort of semi there. And then whoever goes through from there, you know what? I think they're going to get that classic NA fucking chest puffed out, and I think Carrigan will have sat and watched that demo and he'll anti-strap them to death. So I think they're going to have a good deep run here. It's just really, for me, about what's Astralis going to do. Now, what's interesting about Astralis' side of the bracket, they're going to have to... It's a fucking war zone for them. Because they're going to... Vitality are going to beat NiP. Astralis will end up playing Vitality when they beat Cloud9. Then you've got, like, Na'Vi FaZe. Mad coin toss if FaZe carry the Blast form through. So, Ascent... And then Fnatic. Renegades. We don't even know how good Fnatic are going to be. I think they'll beat Renegades. So then Astralis are going to have to beat Na'Vi, FaZe, or Fnatic. And if Astralis play like they did at the Blast, that could be interesting. So everything's lined up for Mouse Sports to get the number 1 spot off the back of Katowice, because all they need to do is finish ahead of Astralis to do it, essentially.
The cool thing is that it's just even possible. Like, I already think, like, what Carrigan's just done with this Mouse Sports alone is, like, worthy of a fucking real documentary. It's, like, unbelievable when you consider the lineup he got a while back. So if he could actually get them, even for a month, to the literal world number 1 ranking, in a real ranking, obviously, like HLTVs, that would be an insane accomplishment. And if you do it in the time period during which Astralis was the number 1 team and would win everything with the greatest team ever, what can you even say? The guy already, like, I already think at this point in time, if you ever make him one of those lists, like, greatest players to never win a minute, he should be top of the list, mate. Like literally, you can even make a case if we're talking IGLs as well. He can even say to people who are like simple and equal, like, you know what, mate, step aside a second. I've actually been doing this for like 10 years and I'm one of my major. Like, you've been doing it a couple of years. You're straight fire now, but yours will come. Like, that's the thing. This guy is like a first ballot Hall of Fame. That's what I always say. It's just unreal.
Yeah, no doubt. And sorry, I did get it wrong. It's Ty Lue that are coming in for Vici, not the other way around. I don't think it changes the bracket in any meaningful way. So there we have it. So that was all of the stuff about the Ice Challenge. There's this will make you laugh. Just as an aside, because you were talking about Zeus and that famous Henry G call. So I was looking on over at the Score Esports.
I saw this headline, because the headline alone. Here's the thing, right? Go on, say it just for the sake of people.
Yeah. So they made a video, and like, listen, I'll also just add, like, I think the Score Esports, while I don't agree when they do their little opinion piece stuff, they do make some really good video content. I'm a little bit envious of some of it. I wish I had the time and the resources myself to make some of the content they do. But yeah, they put a video out. Counter-Strike's most brain-dead mastermind, the story of Zeus. And that's just fucking brilliant. Because even though it is obviously alluding to the fact, how brain-dead can he be? How brain-dead can he actually be if he's winning this stuff?
The problem with that is, though...
He sort of is, isn't he?
I'll let the joke sit for a minute, because as a joke, it's funny. It's not even that off point. I will just say this. They can absolutely suck a dick, because there's no universe in which they would ever make a video like the time that Tarek, the most brain-dead IGL, won a major. Even though, by the way, that'd be totally...
I don't know. I think they actually did do a funny one for Tarek, you know.
What did it say?
With a mad title in it. Let me find it for you. Sorry, keep going.
Something about him being a peanut brain, maybe.
Yeah, it might even be that. Yeah, like peanut brain.
The problem is, that's a meme, though. There's no meme of
There you go. Yeah, it was shirtless streamer, college dropout, major winner. So they even called him a college
That's
dropout.
not the same, though. My point is this.
Yeah, maybe.
Who accepts some safe target like a fucking Chinese player, Russian player? Who would you ever call brain dead who's a legend like that? Zeus was in 10 major finals.
Oh yeah, listen, and I know we bang on him on the like, his record speaks for itself.
No, but I'm just saying, I do not believe there's anyone from their region that would ever call brain dead like that. So to me, it's not fair to do, you know. Like, what you're doing there is you rely on the fact Zeus doesn't speak English, is probably never going to say anything about you. You're just relying on that. And the fact that everyone will go, some like fucking, what was that shit comedian? Like, oh, in Russia, brain dead IGL is winning. Like, it's almost that level of dog shit humour. And also, I'll just say, fuck the Score generally, because one of the things that they have done that is totally unacceptable.
Oh, no, I know what you're going to say. Go on.
If they just chilled and just made videos like this, just general, like basically, by the way, they didn't invent it. That site called SB Nation does it for real sports. They have a guy who sits around in an office and he thinks up an idea, fun ideas, by the way, like they'll go, why don't we take the last kick that Peyton Manning's team had as the Colts and rewind that and see what happened. And it's not a bad concept. The idea is if you're a casual fan who wasn't following then, you get the basic storyline. That's cool. But what they do at the Score Esports that has always pissed me off is they pretend they're esports insiders. They're not in any context whatsoever. Like, they don't know anyone. So they'll do videos that are trying to make, like, we're going to tell you what actually is going on. You don't know what's going on. You're literally picking up, like, Reddit rumors and shit. Or you're pronouncing on, like, gaming culture when you don't know what that symbol means. You don't know any of this shit.
I've joked about it with Colin, right? Because they have, like, 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And I every time they do some, like, reportage, it's always, and Richard Lewis, and I'm like, listen, guys, why don't you let me? Like,
they're also parasites. They're like certain companies out there that gamble into kids, and literally all they do is just steal everyone else's content and put it on their Twitter. Sound.
I mean, you know, that might be, they do make some good original content. I'll say that. I won't go all the way in, but I've jokingly said to them, like just come and get me, and I'll do the videos for you. Like, if I've got a report.
Yeah, but that's the joke, Richard. They wouldn't, because you'd actually have to take a real salary. You're not eating fucking ramen noodles and sleeping inside one guy's old.
Actually, I love ramen
in fucking
still.
San Francisco, like they're fucking at edit rates, and then getting up every day and going, 10 more videos to do today. Right? Why Faker is the best? Like, give me a break.
But anyway, so I did think that was funny.
I'll do my own, Richard. You know what? If I get some time, I'll make a fake fucking green screen. I'll do like the Bar Esports, and it'll be like, what's going on there? A lot of people back in 2015 thought Flush cheated. Did he? No. It's like,
I mean, like, I'll also add, 'Cause I don't know if you remember this. It was the score that did this to us, wasn't it? When we were doing that fucking dream hack and we were like fucking around when we were doing the ad plug.
Oh yeah, they were. Oh no, that's also another thing, Richard. The same
And they called
people
up and-
who want to be able to banter and call a 10-time major finalist and like I think 5-time major winner brain dead. Also want to simultaneously get butthurt when someone makes fun of them.
Yeah, because I can't remember what we said now, because it was
we
2015,
did was we made a
wasn't
joke
it?
about Slasher and the fucking Score app, and then we were also joking about like the movie or whatever. 'Cause it was the
No,
Jurassic-
that was it. Yeah, because we had we had to plug Jurassic Park, right?
Jurassic World was the one at the time.
Jurassic
The one-
World.
one-
Sorry, we had to plug Jurassic World, and we were just having some fun with it, like just making
The most
some
light-hearted
jokes.
jokes of all time as well.
Yeah.
Nothing serious.
And then like we came back and you said something like, and obviously as well, Richard, talking about fossilized dinosaurs, Slash has done this great article over at the Score, right? Which I think is fucking funny because he's been in esports a long time.
And if you know anything about the Counter-Strike community, that is our vibe. So the idea you'd get upset about that shows you aren't in our community.
Yeah, right. So, but I think what had happened was it was at the time when Rod was entrenched in some mad beef with you and me simultaneously. So for whatever reason, I don't know the mechanics of how it happened. I don't know if Rod said something or if they just did it kind of apropos of nothing. But the Score, we got told, like in our ear in production, don't make any more jokes about the Score, please. Just read what's on the card for the Score. We're liking what you're doing for Jurassic World, but please don't make any more jokes at the expense of the Score. And I was like, fucking grow up, lads. Like, for fuck's sake, you want a memorable fucking ad read, don't you? You don't want me to just be reading off a card and a fucking
Would that be the
monotonous voice.
Score, the most brain-dead, literal vegetative state on life support site content creation site of all time?
Yeah, it must be.
Give me a break. Tell you what, you guys are okay. You're just okay. That's the thing with you. You're just okay, aren't you?
I like it.
Fuck you.
Anyway, fuck off the ads again. Like that fucking,
Exactly.
yeah, like that guy in the cinema. Anyway, so let's do some roster news and then we'll get on to start heading towards viewer questions. So I alluded to it earlier. We'll throw a little bit in there. Existence did famously say he was never going to retire till he got a major, and
Why,
as he
of
kind
course.
of yeah, and as
This brain-dead Belgian liar's done it again. Let's just disrespect everyone from our seniors.
I don't fucking dude, like, mate, he's in full fucking bar brawl mode still, like just throwing punches at everyone.
No, it's like that's the thing with me as well. It's like
I
there
know,
is
you fucking wild
the
as
one
fuck,
element
mate.
I will say that is unreal is the problem is you don't. It is like a bar brawl. It's like if I'm in the middle of scrapping with someone who's fucking with me, I think they're trying to go for my life. Don't just like waltz up and try and have a word because I'm just going to turn and fucking just be going on you. As like, yeah, anyone can get it. Like that's just the way I've always been. So there are people where they'll just pop up like, I don't know if that's right. So get the fuck out of this industry.
Mate, I'm the same. So I can't criticize you for that because I know I do it. I do it on Twitter all the time, like perfectly. You know, it's just a war. Right, you've dealt with like 500 fucking cunts, actual brain dead cunts, right? That you know they just tweet nonsense at you and can't conceive that they are not capable of an original idea that another equally leveled moron hasn't already said. Right? They don't understand that like. It's not an original thought to go, why do you block people for having different opinions? Like, right? They don't understand that, like, you're just regurgitating and repeating. Yeah, it's not why. I'm blocking you because you're jamming up my feed and there was 499 other dumb cunts saying the same thing before you. So now you may as well go because also we do know that what's going to happen is if I don't answer, you're not going to like just leave it there and go, well, you didn't. You'll tweet at me again, answer me, like as if I am at your fucking beck and call. You're ringing a bell every time you tweet at me. So what I do is I'll fucking ring your bell, fucking block you and just ignore you because there isn't a solitary thought in your head that will ever matter to me. You will never have an idea that is worth telling to anyone else ever in the fucking 80 years you exist on planet Earth. So what is the point? Like, so just you're blocked, go away. You cry about it in your Discords or whatever. That's fucking fine. But yeah, I'm the same. Like, so after 500 of them, you'll get the 501st guy, like a reasonable person will just pop up and go, Rich, like, probably could have just backed down from this. Like, I really like your work. I've supported you. If you go, fuck off, you fucking rat. Like, I give a fuck if you're a fan of my work. And it's like, It's not your fault, mate. What you're saying is reasonable, but like I've had to deal with morons every day. So you're just getting it, aren't you? It's just how it is. So I try not to do it, but I fucking do it. So whatever. Anyway, existence. Speaking of rats, lying rats, said he was going to play forever, lied. He's actually retired and turns to coaching. So he's not going to win a major as a player, but he sort of thinks he may be able to get one as a coach.
Well, yeah, technically now he just has to coach forever.
Yeah.
He's a liar.
So the question...
Not unreasonable, I think.
I mean, obviously we should say something. He did have a great career. I think he lingered a little bit too much. And, you know, he's 29. I mean, he could still be playing, but he couldn't cut the mustard for a while, if we're just honest about it. So the question now becomes, you know, existence as a coach. I think it's a role he should have transitioned into a long, long time
It's the most obvious slam dunk of fucking anyone in the scene, almost, isn't it?
Exactly. So the question becomes, where's he going to go? I mean, do you think a big team's going to swoop in and put him on as a coach?
The problem there is I don't actually know how many of like the modern generation of players know enough about him or respect him. Like in that sense, that's where he has fucked his career up, Richard. Is the idea like here's the thing. If he'd have just been like, as far as I can tell, seems to be what Sean Gairs's take. It's like they don't ever, or Pronax, they don't seem to really want to be a coach. They just wanted to play as long as they could, and then if they're not going to do that, we'll go do something else with their career, like Sean Gairs's talent. Pronax like an owner of an org now or something bizarre. So if you wanted to do it that way, fair enough. The problem is, if after all of that you eventually were going to be a coach, you picked the worst time to do it. Because if you'd have done it at the end of do you remember in early 2016 was when he was kicked from G2, where Shocks kicked him out and they brought in Body. Yes, I think it was Body who brought in a replacement.
Body, right?
That was the time where if you'd have just said, right, now that I can't make it the top team, I announce my retirement.
Now that I have to play with Body.
Basically, I become a coach. You would literally instantly be like the top of the list of coaches. I actually think at the time, I'm pretty sure he even said it publicly, like I think Hastro of Envious would have hired you the next fucking day as their coach. Like as much as you might think they had some of those players had beats, that was only his players. Someone like NBK would have hired existence as a coach the next fucking day. Like, all these people fucked with him. Everyone from Source obviously had mad respect for him. The problem is that doesn't go that far nowadays. So if you're looking at like big orgs, the big problem at the moment is there's no reason any of the French teams would hire you, because Malek's basically, that is his project at G2. And then the Extaz guy at Vitality, as far as I can tell, is one of the main reasons why they turned that shit around and became a top team. So there's no space in the French scene, which already was his problem as in IGL. So basically you need an international team, which, to tie back into what we joked about earlier, doesn't help that you've basically gone out your way for the last 20 years to tell everyone you don't speak English. When, by the way, your base level is like fluency. You are fluent, of course. So the big problem is I don't know if the other big international teams would want him. I will say this. The teams I'm in contact with, I'll recommend as a coach. I do still think good coaches are thin on the ground. So it's probably a bargain for someone if they want to pick him up.
Yeah, I mean, it could be someone to go out, you know, if you wanted to. I mean, because of the English thing, like, it's like you say, he's put like a mad limitation on himself that he just didn't need to do. Can you imagine if like Jason Lake called him up and said, "Do you want to come out to Complexity and, you know, work with all this sick like fucking science shit we got going on? They got a fucking lab, you know what I mean, and fucking all of this stuff. Like, imagine what he could do with a bunch of young players and like a dialed-in IGL. Like, I don't know." But yeah, I agree with you. I think this whole the narrative he's crafted about him not speaking English, it might hurt him because it's like you say, where are you going to go in the French scene? So, whatever. Anyway,
then again, Peacemaker still finds teams, so stick around.
Yeah, but I think about it. He's proven a willingness to travel, coach any other teams, speaks English, right? Never, you know. So people go, well.
Oh, there's another thing as well.
Why not take Peacemaker?
There's one thing I will say. Is another thing you have to do in the coaching game is forget everything you did as a player. That doesn't count anymore. You have to show you're committed to being a coach. That it's not just a one-off thing you're trying. Because actually, jokes aside, what you just said about Peacemaker, it's basically the same reason why if you're a Premier League manager, odds are you will definitely get a job in another top division somewhere, even if you get fired, because the logic is that's a resume builder. You've shown you have worked at the top level, you've worked with top players, you've done the schedule, you stuck with it, you didn't quit. Like, these things matter. So I would hope even though he says he wants to be a coach, like he's in it for the long haul. Like, it's not going to be about the first team he goes to has to be amazing, otherwise he's going to quit. Because if you're going to quit, yeah, there is no point picking you up. You have to. This has to be like your new career that you're starting at square one.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about. This is just a short bit of news. I'm sure you saw it and kind of probably just dismissed it with everything else that's been going on. But Neo and Taz have said they're getting the band back together. They're going to be reunited and they're going to start a new project.
Not in again.
No.
Okay, good.
Listen. If you see, right, we've got our officer in the boot, yeah. So we got to do our thing.
Oh shit! I knew I smelled bacon when y'all motherfuckers pulled up, man.
Do you want to do it? What you saying? What you doing?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've got everything you want.
Where's your car?
Please, boys.
Oh shit, man. You know I already sold it for weed, man.
Oh, get in the boot with the officer then.
Wait, what gang are you in? Are you with
Officer in the boot, yeah. So we got to do our thing.
Oh shit! I knew I smelled bacon when y'all motherfuckers pulled up, man.
Do you want to do it? What you saying? What you doing?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've got everything you want.
Does a fish piss in the river?
What you doing?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've got everything you want.
Where's your car?
Please, boys.
Oh shit, man. You know I already sold it for weed, man.
Oh, get in the boot with the officer then.
I don't know, man. Maybe you turn me into some motherfucking burnt bacon or some shit, man. I don't know what y'all at, man. Is he really in the boot, man?
Yeah,
I'm in the boot. Please let me out. I've got everything you want.
Oh, does a fish shit? I knew I.
We've got our officer in the boot, yeah. So we got to do our thing.
Oh shit! I knew I smelled bacon when y'all motherfuckers pulled up, man.
Do you want to do it? What you saying? What you doing?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh,
What you saying? What you doing?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've got everything you want.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon fish.
What you saying?
I knew I smelled bacon.
Officer in the boot, yeah. So we got to do our thing.
Oh shit! I knew I smelled bacon when y'all motherfuckers pulled up, man.
Do you want to do it? What you saying? What you doing?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've got everything you want.
Where's your car?
Please, boys.
Oh shit, man. You know I already sold it for weed, man.
Oh, get in the boot with the officer then.
I don't know, man. Maybe you really in the boot, man?
Yeah,
I'm in the boot. Please let me out.
I mean, we can show you if you want. I don't mind. I'll show you.
Yeah, I want to see him, man.
This is like this isn't to you. Get out of the boot. Get out of the boot. Get out of the boot. No. Tell your friend. He thinks we're shooting at him. Tell your friend.
No, we're not shooting them. Yo, brother. Yo, hot bitch.
You guys want to come burn him alive with us?
No. I mean,
okay, good.
Listen. If you see, right, we've got our officer in the boot, yeah. So we got to do our thing.
Oh shit! I knew I smelled bacon when y'all motherfuckers pulled up, man.
Do you want to do it? What you saying? What you doing?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've got everything you want.
Bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've got everything you want.
Where's your car?
Please, boys.
Oh shit, man. You know I already sold it for weed, man.
Oh, get in the boot with the officer then.
I don't know, man. Maybe you turn me into some motherfucking burnt bacon or some shit, man. I don't know what y'all at, man. Is he really in the boot, man?
Yeah.
I'm in the boot. Please let me out.
In the boot, man?
I'm in the boot. Please let me out.
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
You see, right? We've got our officer in the boot, yeah. So we got to do our thing.
Oh shit! I knew I smelled bacon when y'all motherfuckers pulled up, man.
Do you want to do it? What you saying? What you saying?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've done everything you asked.
Where's your car?
Please, boys.
Oh shit, man. You know I.
You guys want to come burn him alive with us?
Man.
Do you want to?
Oh shit! I knew I smelled bacon when y'all motherfuckers pulled up, man.
Do you want to do it? What you saying? What you saying?
You guys want to come burn him alive with us? We're gonna burn him alive.
Oh, does a fish piss in the river?
Hell yeah!
Let's go burn this motherfucking pig, man. Let's make some bacon strips up in this bitch.
Please, I've done everything you asked.
Where's your car?
Please, boys.